So we got the engine bay all cleaned up, except for those leaves. Those leaves can stay. And we got the coil packs just kind of moved off the backside. We got the headers on. We got all the wiring disconnected. And we're going to basically try our first drop-in right now. I have the driver's side motor mounts on this frame. Sorry, on the motor, but I have the frame ones over there. I have the passenger side motor mount still on the frame on the car, and we're going to just try to put it in there and see how it looks. I do have these on there, but I think the place I think I'm going to run this at says I can have square tubing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring square tubing out around the header, connect it to this one, probably 2x2, so just bolt it, bring it over, around, and then connect it into the Toyota Camry factory mount right there. So I've kind of got my motor mount ideas figured out. This mounts a lot differently than a Toyota Camry motor, that's for sure. What are these holes? Look at these holes. Would that work anywhere? Maybe a plate off of that? Not sure, I just noticed those. This is all a learning experience for me, and I'm willing to try it, right? So let's get the engine crane set up, lift this puppy up, and try our first drop-in. Well, boys and girls, guess where the motor's sitting, but she's a little tall. So here's the issue we have. Because of how the transmission is on the back of this Lumina, it is into the subframe. Now, I'm not one for cutting subframes out of cars. I think it's a horrible idea, but this thing needs to go down quite a bit. Like, maybe if I just go that way. I'm thinking if I just cut a little bit out and then bring it down quite a bit, that we're going to be okay. This is not a spot where these cars usually bend, and I don't really see a big problem with cutting some of this out. Like I said, Lumina's, the subframe's kind of tucked back a little bit more. We're just going to go in there with a torch and kind of cut some of this out. We're just going to do some quick marks to get an idea of what we kind of need and where we need it. And then we'll go from there. Alright, I'll get back to you guys. So this is where I got last night. There's pretty much no pressure on the chains. It's just sitting there as a secondary backup. Now, I do not like how close the Lumina transmission comes to the Camry sub, so I've actually cut some of the sub out, and I'm still not overly happy. The motor is quite a bit away from the firewall. Now, I don't really see a way around this unless I heavily modify the Camry sub, and that's really not something that I want to do. So, here's my game plans. Let's just see down here. I have these spacers set up. Now, the bottom one's just tacked in place so it doesn't fall off, and the top one's just sitting there. But, here's the issue. I messaged a couple of promoters here in Ontario and a couple in the US, and they tell me that this is allowed. They tell me that putting square tubing is allowed to make the motor mount like this, but they think that it's going to look intimidating. Like this one right here, my light's broken, but I'm obviously going to cut it back so it's not so big, so that way it doesn't support the subframe in any way to make it overly strong. But I'm going to have to figure this out. I don't know if they want to build me to build a custom mount that is all laser cut or plasma cut, ground down, welded together, so that it doesn't look so, what's the word I'm looking for? Overbuilt or scabbed together is the word I like. I like my stuff to look half decently pretty, and this right here is not pretty to me, but it does work. So here's the problem. Do I just leave it working, or do I make it look pretty? Now this side's not so bad. I really don't think that they'd be concerned about this reinforcing the frame at all, but the other side, I think that they'd be a little bit concerned. So this right here is the factory Lumina subframe mount, and it gets welded in like this. But if I was to weld that in there like that, it would have to be over really far, and it would have to be spaced back, and it basically wouldn't even be touching any of the factory Camry sub because of how the Lumina subframe is. And then this bolts into here, wrong way. This bolts into there like that. And that's your front passenger side motor kind of thing. What I did, let me get the light in here, is I welded this yellow plate in there. There you go. Yellow plate in here, just like that one would have been. And then I put the 3x3 spacer underneath it and connected to the factory mount. Now, yes, there's some things about this that I don't like. I don't like how far the weight is in. I'd have to put a couple gussets, and as soon as I start putting gussets, I think it's going to look a little bit overbuilt. So this side here, I think I'm going to focus my most amount of energy and time on to build a custom bracket that works, basically. Works as a... what's a proper word here? As an eliminator to get rid of the cantilever off the subframe. Now, mind you, that yellow plate could be argued that is reinforcing the sub, and I would agree with you. That's going to reinforce the sub, and I do not want to go to a show and get turned away because they think that the motor mounts are reinforcing the sub. So I'm thinking of a motor mount that comes off of these 3 bolts and then just comes to the sub right here. Kind of dark, it's hard to see. I'm going to have to do a little bit of custom fabbing and see what I can come up with. So give me a little bit of time here, and let's see what happens. So we have the 3-1 in here. We have a custom motor mount made for this side. It's just a plate that connects to where the factory one mounts, and then 2 pieces of flat plate down with a gusset in the middle kind of thing. Just tacked to sub right now. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting on people to message me back about rules. I'm mostly talking to the promoter, and we're going to see how this goes. Now this side here, I had it all done up real nice, and then I had to take the torch and cut out for the axle because I kind of forgot the axle has to go through that damn hole. And then I had to cut some welds and pound it down, so now I'm just going to put another plate in there and fill this gap right in. So, you know, it's looking pretty good. The motor has lots of space. Even on the back side, there's quite a bit of space. The one thing that I did notice after I built my motor mounts the first time, you see how far this overhangs? So what I did is I centered the motor inside the chassis, which, you know, being a rear-wheel drive, they're the only motors I've really done motor swaps in. So in a rear-wheel drive, you always center the motor, you make sure it's nice and centered. So I centered this, I measured off the frame rails to give me my proper center depth. I went to pulleys, to be honest, just to give it a quick center, and then I went off firewall to the intake to center from intake back. And then I realized that the driver axle is 1.5 inches shorter than the passenger axle, so then the whole system had to come this way 1.5 inches, which made me redo all of these motor mounts. So a lot of refabbing today. But the one thing I will note, there is a lot more space in here than there is with a Toyota motor. Like, honestly, there is not that much space on a Toyota motor inside of a Toyota. You could probably put a Zerk into one of these cars very easy, a full engine cage, like extremely easy, and give yourself more space. So that's basically everything I've done today. Motor mounts, I kind of want to cut the rad support back, so we'll kind of see what we can do here. What I mean by that is I want to shorten the frame up. There's some places that let me do that, and we'll have to just wait back on some places to see where it can run, to see what I can do. By doing a motor swap, I pretty much make this thing not able to run about 90% of the shows around me, maybe even 95% of the shows around me. So honestly, I'm just making a car that I'm going to take the rules and just throw them at a wall, and once the car's built, see where I can take it pretty much. So yeah, we're playing kind of guess where she's going to go at this point in time. I still have no idea of where I want it to go. I just have an idea of what I want to do. As for the headers, they're both bent from the Buick still. The headers are on there. That's about it. I do want to do a little bit, a couple things that kind of messed me up on the Buick, which with the spark plug wires, a little bit more wiring, deleting, stuff like that. Try to see what I can do. But thanks for watching, guys. This has been a lot of fabbing today. This has been a lot of trial and error, cut, recut, remake, redrill kind of day. But we have the driver's side mount done, and a lot of you guys are going to ask me why I use such thick plates, and it's because I had this plate on a shelf. It was the perfect size, and I didn't even have to cut it. I just had to drill the holes. I guess I did have to cut it later on for the axle, but originally that just bolted in there really nicely. As for this side here was a lot of bandsawing, measuring, cardboard templates, and then just kind of filling in all the holes pretty much with weld. We got a pretty nice, I don't know, honestly. Like I said, I'm waiting for some people to contact me to see where I can run it and what can be done. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy. The motor is just kind of tacked in there right now, and it's pretty solid. I'm pretty happy. But we'll see. So like I said, guys, thanks for watching. This is part 2 of the Lumina and the W body. Probably the next video, before I go a little bit more crazy with the motor mounts, we'll tackle suspension, because the Lumina axles do not go through Camry spindles. Even the V6 spindles, they will not go through. So I don't know what we're going to do. I have a couple W body spindles that I want to try to put in, and we'll see what I can do. Mostly just guessing by this point in time. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow.